Not only until you're clear can you build towards the vision. There is no gap at that point. There's no gap. It's ambiguous. You're not sure. You're not clear. When there's not clarity around where you want to go in life and business, you have erratic action. You go all over the place. You can't make quality decisions at that point. Sometimes you get lucky and make the right decision. Sometimes, most of the time, you don't.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Carrot Cast. Now, the Carrot Cast, we're usually diving in doing interviews with amazing real estate investors, amazing real estate agents. Now, in these episodes, every Thursday, they're the Trevor Truck Talks, where you get to hear behind the scenes of the mindset shifts I'm going through as a CEO of one of the fastest growing companies in America, and the mindset shifts you can take to run your business and win back your freedom as well. Let's dive into this episode.
So there's something I call the gap, and I'm driving to work right now early. I've got a mastermind that I'm in for software company owners, and heading there. We start at 7 a.m., so a little truck talk in the way. Here's a thought that popped up to my mind. So my wife and I were talking about our kids' school a couple weeks ago, and we love the kids' school. The kids love their school. Just like with any school, there's some bumps and bruises and some things that aren't ideal. But all in all, it's a great school. They were in school all year last year, had an amazing year, no outbreaks, nothing like that. And we're just so thankful for being able to have the kids in the school. But there's a problem with it. So the problem that we see, or at least we see from the outside, okay, so maybe this isn't actually a problem, maybe it's just a perceived problem from our side, is it doesn't seem like the board is really clear on where we're going. And so there's a few things that kind of keep cropping up in the school that seem like, man, like, is that where we're supposed to be going? Is there a guiding light to this school that we're growing towards? Kind of the real question is, what's the vision, right? Like, where are we going? What's the vision? What's the goals? And then once you have the goals and the vision for where you're wanting to grow, then you can make a plan and ask, where am I at right now? Like, here's where we're wanting to go. And then you can say, where am I at right now? And then you can make a plan and you can grow towards that plan. But until you have the vision, until you know where you're going in the future, until you know the bits and pieces, the goals, all those types of things, you really can't grow. There's no growth in an environment where there's not a gap. And so whenever I think about growth, or I think about myself, when I get into a spot where I start to feel stagnated a little bit, or the business feels stagnated, or where team members on our team feel stagnated, or where teams are stagnated, or where customers are stagnated, or my wife and I even talked about it, with ourselves and also marriage. We're madly in love with each other. We've been married for 15 years, 3 kids, but just like anything, if you don't work on it really hard, there can be a little bit of stagnation pops up there instead of innovation on the business side, or instead of really moving forward towards something exciting, right? And I'm sure all of you guys, or many of you guys and gals, can relate to that. And so this concept of a gap is critical. And the gap is important in life. The gap is important in business. The gap is important in physical fitness, in health, in money. The gap is important in all kinds of things. The only spot the gap is not critical and important in is fulfillment, which is kind of weird. And we've talked about fulfillment a lot, right? Because fulfillment isn't, am I growing towards something, in the future all the time? It could be, hey, am I moving towards something that matters? Am I growing? Am I getting better? I am definitely fulfilled when I feel like I'm getting better. I'm definitely fulfilled when I feel like I'm challenging myself and I'm growing. I'm not fulfilled when I'm not growing and challenging myself. But also, it's hard to be fulfilled when there's always this massive gap between where you are and where you think you want to be. There's always this massive discontentment saying, well, shoot, how can I be fulfilled and how can I be insanely happy right now when I'm not where I want to be, right? And so it's kind of like thinking about a road trip. If you're going to drive from Oregon to New York, as an example, you have a very, very, very clear outcome in mind. There's a very clear gap between where you are and where you want to go. It's about 3,000 miles. You can see it on a map. You can see the start point, where you are. You can see the end point. You can even do the math to see how many miles is between you and that end point. It's very clear. The gap is very clear. And so it's actually exciting because you can grow. If there is no gap, you're probably just going to get out of your car and maybe drive to the grocery store and back, right? There's nothing going to be pulling you to this greater vision of New York in that case. But at the same time, when we go on road trips, we don't usually just drive to New York and put our heads down. Maybe sometimes we do if we're in a hurry, right? But we usually don't drive that distance, put our heads down and not look up and enjoy things. We're usually going to plan out some stops along the way. You're going to plan out stopping at this cool spot in St. Louis and stopping at this river over here in Idaho and this attraction over here in Chicago or whatever it is. You're going to plan stops, you're going to have fun, and you're going to plan experiences. And those experiences themselves are actually going to be insanely fulfilling. They're actually the best part of the journey usually is the experiences on the way to New York, on the way to where you want to go, on the way to closing the gap. But for some reason, it's way too easy for us as entrepreneurs to not plan those experiences, to not plan those things that keep us fulfilled while we're chasing the closing of the gap, while we're chasing where we want to go. And so I have a couple little proposals for you in this Trevor Truck Talk. So first of all, in order to grow, in order to not become stagnant, you have to have a gap, okay? So that's the first thing. When I look at my friends or when I look at people out there who are not growing and who are, there's a lot of people just sucking, off of society right now. They're just sucking the value out of society, taking cash, and not wanting to go get jobs. There's a lot of people in that spot right now. Are they bad people? I don't think they're bad people. I think the problem is they don't have a gap. They don't have a gap between where they want to go and who they want to be as a person and who they are today. They don't have a vision. And when you don't have a vision, you're just okay being stagnant. You're just okay staying just where you are. You're just okay just barely scraping by and barely living. Because there is no vision, there's no clear vision, there's no clear thing pulling you to something better. And so the fix for a lot of those people, I'm not going to say it's the fix because I'm not in their lives. I don't know what's going on, right? I don't want to pretend like there's this easy, simple little fix to change people's lives that are in tough situations. But one of the big fixes is having a vision that you can be proud of, that you can truly believe in for an improved and better self, an improved and better you. And once that gap is created, then you can pull back and say, cool, where am I at right now? And write that down. So write down your goal, write down that vision story like I've talked about here in the podcast before. Write down that ideal average day. That's my vision story. I write it 20 years out, then I do 10 years out, then I do 5. That ideal average day literally spells out in detail from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, in detail, pretty much every waking moment, what I see, what I hear, what I'm doing, who I'm talking to, who I'm working with, where I go, everything. From the time when I wake up in the morning, it's like, hey, cool, what time did I wake up? And I write that down. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. or whatever. And then I say, well, what do I see first? And then I say, cool, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. in a room that looks like this. And I look out the window, and here's a window on this side of the room. And right out the window is a view that looks like this. And da-da-da-da. Here's what my bedroom looks like. Here's how it smells. Here's how it feels. Here's the first conversation I have with my wife next to me. Here's the first place I go. Here's the first thing I do. After that, where do I go? What do I have breakfast? Where do I have breakfast? Who do I have breakfast with? Who am I talking to? The whole thing. And I cast it out 20 years. So my kids right now are 6, 8, and 10. So I'll even put down in that 20-year vision for that ideal average day all the way from wake up time till bed. Where is my 10-year-old daughter? She'll be 30 at the time. Where's my 8-year-old son? He'll be 28 at the time. Where's my 6-year-old daughter? He'll be 26 at the time. And I'm just going to vision out where I believe that they'll be even, okay? I vision out what kind of work I want to do, what type of job I'm having, what does my work look like, who do I work with, what are my work hours, when I go to work, where does it look like, all those types of things, okay? So when you're insanely clear about that, you can start to build towards it, but not only until you're clear can you build towards the vision. There is no gap at that point. There's no gap. It's ambiguous. You're not sure. You're not clear. When there's not clarity around where you want to go in life and business, you have erratic action. You go all over the place. You can't make quality decisions at that point. Sometimes you get lucky and make the right decision. Most of the time you don't. So I want to ask you, do you have a crystal clear vision for yourself, the person you want to become, the ideal average day? Write it down, get in detail, make it the most exciting story you've read this year. And then next say, cool, I've got my life part pegged down. Now, what about the business side? Okay. Now write down what type of business would support that life in 20 years and 10 years and 5 years. Okay. What type of business do I want to have 5 years from now? Start from the 20 and then work it back to go, cool. What would my ideal average day have to be like in 10 years in order to live that 20-year life? And then what would my ideal average day have to be in 5 years to live that 10-year life? And then, like I said, you can start to work it back to business. What's that vision for business? What's the vision for business in 20 years and 10 years and 5? And I'm not saying what's your vision for your exact business today in 20 years, because you might not be doing the same darn business in 20 years. I probably won't be. Okay. The question is, what do you want your business life to look like? What type of business would fire you up? What type of coworkers? What type of work gives you energy? That type of thing. Then you can work towards that to find the right business over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then, like I said, you walk it back. What's my business goals? And then once you get to the 5 year, then you're probably really looking at your current business, right? You're probably really looking at, well, cool, this business I have here, is it going to be around in 5 years? Is that going to be my focus? If so, awesome. What's it look like? Right? Write the goals. What's the revenue? How much time do you spend in that business? What types of things do you do? Okay. And then only then, when you have that 5 year vision mapped out, or 3 year, whatever you want to do for the business side, I do 3 year for the business side. Okay. Then, and only then, can you map out a 1 year plan and start to execute that. And all too often, we're creating these 1 year plans just based off of numbers. We're based off of whatever we can see in front of us that looks like is movable. And usually the only movable thing in business, if we don't have a clear vision, is numbers. And that's where fulfillment starts to lack. That's where fulfillment starts to lack, because we start to make business plans based off of numbers, not based off of hitting a vision, not based off of closing the gap, not based off of actually something that really matters to us at our core. We base the plan off of something else completely. And it's off of the people around us and the goals that they're hitting and the masterminds that we're at and the numbers that they're hitting. We start to march down this path of unhappiness, of unfulfillment, because we don't have clarity on the vision that excites us. We don't have a clear gap in our minds of where we're wanting to go in business and in life. So in closing, I want to ask you this question. Do you have a gap, or do you feel like you're a little bit stagnant in business or life? Do you have a gap, or do you feel like things are just not really moving towards something exciting? Do you have a gap, or are you very content, which contentment is a great thing? Okay, contentment's a great thing. I'm not going to knock contentment ever. But are you content, and then contentment eventually turns into stagnation. Stagnation turns into lack of momentum. Lack of momentum turns into lack of happiness. So use today, use tomorrow to think about this. Think about how clear you are or aren't on where you want to go in life and business. And then pull back and take a piece of paper and write out, where are you right now? And I will literally take, I'll go on the whiteboard, or I'll go on a piece of paper, and I'll physically draw out the gap. I'll put like a little stick figure of me, okay? And then I'll put, this icon up and to the right on the piece of paper that says where I want to go. I'll do some bullet points that say, the highlights of my vision story, in 5, 10, 20 years, all right? And then I'll draw a line below that, and I just have to kind of look at, well, how big is the gap? Is it a huge gap? Is it a small gap? I write down where I am right now and those important things, and then I make a plan. I say, I need to change these things about myself. I need to change these things about my business. And that becomes exciting. Tying this all the way back to the map now, going to New York. Those things become my waypoints. Those things become my stopping off points. Those things become my attraction that I can actually really look forward to on this vision, on this journey. Okay, there's these stopping off points now that I get to celebrate. There's these stopping off points that I enjoy to love the journey. And I still struggle with it though. So I'm heading into the office right now. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode.